I was by Scarlett's side my whole life. I helped her overcome her social anxiety and even took a bullet for her. But when Ethan asked her who I was, the always cool heiress looked up and adjusted the bow tie on his suit. Casually, with barely hidden contempt, she said, "Just one of the help." Later, Ethan and his 2 loyal cronies formed a 5-person clique with us. And just like that, the number of people I had to serve and suck up to went from 1 to 4. It wasn't until right before our finals that I found Ethan's phone. On the screen, notifications kept popping up from a private group chat they had. Just the 4 of them. Scarlett. All our paperwork for studying abroad is done. Troy. Does that low-class trash still think Scarlett's going to take him with her? He's in for a shock after graduation, isn't he? Jax. The little hustler is always shamelessly trying to hang around us. I heard he even tells people we're all childhood friends. Troy. So delusional. Ethan is our childhood friend. He's just a gopher, isn't he? It's always the ugly ones causing trouble. They were celebrating finally being rid of me. But what they didn't know was that I had been waiting for this day for 10 years. Later, when a blizzard closed off the mountain and I vanished, I heard they went crazy looking for me. The messages on the screen were still popping up one after another. In the dark, empty classroom, the notification sounds were like a hammer striking again and again. They also lit up my pale face. Low-class trash, hustler, ugly freak. The words pounded against my heart. A dense, spreading ache. I always knew they despised me. Every day, Troy would dump all 4 of their homework assignments on my desk like it was his God-given right. He'd order me to finish it all before I could join them in any activity. The senior year workload was already overwhelming. Finishing one person's homework would take until dusk. Including my own, I had to do the work of 5 people, always staying up until 2 or 3 in the morning to get it all done. I knew it was a veiled warning. The subtext was, "Stay away from us. This gang of Silver Spoon kids never insulted you to your face. Instead, they'd find creative ways to humiliate you. They seemed to have a natural talent for it." I wasn't actually surprised they had a private group chat. Every day, as I sat alone in the empty classroom, buried in their homework, they never bothered to block me from their social feeds or TikToks. They just didn't care enough to. Their captions always emphasized their 4-person group, tagging themselves as the Fab Four and posting group photos of the 4 of them. I was the 5th person who shouldn't have been there, who was never meant to be seen. Almost all of those photos and videos revolved around one person, Ethan. Son of a real estate tycoon, the prince everyone orbited around, and the core of the Fab Four. Scarlett had been obsessed with him ever since she first saw him at her 14th birthday party. Ethan was preparing for the school festival performance tomorrow. So this afternoon, after dumping their homework on me, the other 3 all skipped class to go to the dance studio, to watch Ethan practice his routine. At 6 p.m., Ethan posted a picture of the 4 of them out to dinner. The caption read, "I was supposed to be watching my diet for the competition, but these guys dragged me out to eat. Said they were worried I'd pass out on stage tomorrow. Come on, it's just a little low blood sugar. Guess I have to punish you all by making you eat healthy with me." At 8 p.m., all 4 of them posted goofy pictures from an escape room. The comments section was as lively as a live broadcast. Ethan commented on Scarlett's post, "Next time you get scared, don't grab my arm." Scarlett replied, "You're such a coward." I stared at Scarlett's post for a long time without saying anything. She was someone who rarely, if ever, posted on her feed. I clicked on her profile. Her first post was from 3 years ago. And every year since, on the same date, she posted the same thing. "Happy birthday, Ethan," it said. Across all her social media, the only pictures she ever posted had Ethan in them. Troy and Jax would occasionally leave nasty, teasing comments on my posts. But Scarlett never commented. She might have even muted my feed entirely. I opened our chat history. The last message was from 2 months ago, when Scarlett asked if I'd seen Ethan. She had never once asked where I was. I was out sick for over half a month once, and she never asked about me. The first person to even notice was Troy, who needed me to do his homework and run his errands. It was 10 o'clock at night now, and the backup phone Ethan had left in his desk kept buzzing. Thanks to him, I was able to see all of this. Thanks to him, I found out they had all gotten their college acceptance letters and were hiding it from me, and that they were planning to laugh at me after graduation. The person who had planned and arranged for the four of them to study abroad together was none other than Scarlett, the girl I grew up with. She hadn't included me in her future. She wasn't even going to tell me. More than Troy's and Jax's open insults, Scarlett's silence hurt the most. When did we become so cold and distant? Scarlett didn't used to be like this. When I was 7, my dad brought me to her. I managed to stand out among a crowd of kids showing off their talents by playing a tune on the bagpipes. It made the little heiress, who was surrounded by praise and adoration, laugh. At the time, Mrs. Vance was looking for a playmate for her daughter. Sensing an opportunity, the corporation's shareholders eagerly sent their own children over, using Scarlett's birthday party as a pretext. If they could get on good terms with the future heir of the company, they could at least become a trusted confidant. If it was a boy, and a childhood romance blossomed, he might even marry into the Vance family. My dad was just an insignificant subordinate of Scarlett's father. But he had the same idea. After I finished my bagpipe performance, my dad figured it was a lost cause. But the next day, Mr. Vance's assistant called and asked me to come over again. The second time I went, little Scarlett was coolly disassembling a complex puzzle cube. She called it a skube, her tone a little dismissive as she asked if I knew how to solve it. I picked one up and fumbled with it for a long time. In the end, Scarlett and the butler standing beside her stared wide-eyed at the solved cube in my hands. After that, I went over to her house to play a few more times, and then my dad moved us to a place near Scarlett's home. I was a simple, clueless kid back then. I didn't understand social status or class distinctions. All I knew was that I had a lot of fun playing with Scarlett. I did occasionally wonder why I could only play with her. My dad said, "You can only play with Miss Vance. You have to keep her happy so I can keep my job." Mrs. Vance often praised me back then for being smart and lively. I would sometimes overhear Mr. Vance talking to a man in a white coat, saying that Scarlett's reclusive tendencies had improved a lot. I didn't know what reclusive tendencies meant at the time. I just knew that Scarlett would sometimes throw inexplicable tantrums. The other adults were afraid of her. The maids and her parents would try to coax her in hushed tones. I just found it strange. Why didn't her dad spank her? Or even scold her? But I wasn't afraid of her. When she threw a fit, I'd call her out on it. A child's ultimate threat was simple. "I'm not playing with you anymore." To my surprise, it worked. It worked incredibly well. Scarlett would stare at me, dumbfounded, and rush to grab my clothes. I'll stop. Just don't stop playing with me." From then on, if she started acting up before I went home, Mrs. Vance would threaten her by saying I wouldn't be allowed to come over tomorrow. And just like that, her emotions slowly stabilized. Later, after a doctor checked on Scarlett, Mrs. Vance asked me to help her make more friends. I did as she asked. I was filled with a sense of chivalry back then, ready to go to the ends of the earth for my friend. With my help, Scarlett started interacting with more kids her age and gradually became just like any other normal kid. My dad's position at the company rose with her progress. Then, when Scarlett was 10, something terrible happened. She was kidnapped and I was taken with her. As a boy, I had a protective streak. I always saw doctors examining her, so I assumed she was frail. Protecting the weak, protecting her, it was my first instinct. She was terrified and wouldn't stop crying. I was scared too, but I kept comforting her. I promised her we would get home alive. Later that night, the Vance family and the police found the kidnappers' hideout. The kidnappers panicked and decided to kill their hostages. It was stupid, but all I knew was what I'd seen in movies, where heroes bravely save people. I didn't know that a bullet hitting your body would make you bleed, would hurt so much you'd wish you were dead. I was in the ICU for 3 days. When I woke up, I felt like I'd been to hell and back. Seeing me alive, Scarlett cried her eyes out. Our bond grew even stronger after that. We had been through a life-or-death experience together, after all. Scarlett began to truly trust me, telling me private secrets she wouldn't even tell her parents. Her parents also started treating me with more sincerity. Mrs. Vance doted on me, often saying she wanted to make me her godson. I was thrilled, but when I told my dad, he didn't seem happy. But in reality, he had already used the fact that I saved Scarlett's life to get promoted to the president's deputy. He scolded me. "What are you so happy about? If you become her brother, how are you supposed to marry her later?" I didn't understand why I had to marry Scarlett. But it seemed like everyone thought that way. They all assumed I liked Scarlett. But what does a 10-year-old know about love? I lived in an ivory tower for a while, a carefree time of childhood innocence. We were mischievous. I helped her skip class and sneak out to play. I'd imitate her handwriting to do her homework, and we'd cover for each other during grade checks. I really used to think we were friends. I thought Scarlett felt the same way. But after her social anxiety faded and she could interact with people normally, her parents transferred us to a new school, one for the rich and powerful. Scarlett began to mingle with people from her own class. She fit right into the world she was born into and became more and more of an heiress. And less like the Scarlett I used to know. She started to not need me anymore. Scarlett no longer relied on me as her only playmate. My status was awkward among those wealthy kids. They would always indirectly ask who my dad was. They would also probe Scarlett about my relationship with her. When they found out my dad was a subordinate of Scarlett's father, they all got this look of understanding on their faces. Around that time, I would often overhear the rich kids talking about me behind my back. They all said I was clinging to Scarlett, that I was shameless, that I must have used some dirty tricks to stick by her side. At first, Scarlett was furious when she heard those rumors. She stood up for me. After Scarlett lost her temper and warned them, things quieted down a bit. They still looked down on me, but they didn't dare to be so obvious about it. The turning point was when Ethan showed up. After the birthday party, I started seeing Scarlett and Ethan together more often. Ethan was as handsome and radiant as a prince from a manga, with a natural youthful charm that made it hard to look away. He was the son of a real estate tycoon. His family background and looks were a perfect match for Scarlett. Ethan was a very likable guy. After he moved nearby, every time I went to Scarlett's house, I'd see him chatting happily with Mrs. Vance. Mrs. Vance adored him. The designer watches and cufflinks she gave him were on a completely different level from what she'd given me. When I was mentioned, a flicker of awkwardness would cross Mrs. Vance's face, and she'd just say vaguely, "Leo is Scarlett's childhood friend. His father is a very capable subordinate of Scarlett's dad." Leo and Scarlett used to play together a lot when they were little. Ethan would let out a soft ah and then sling an arm around my shoulder with familiar ease. "You're Scarlett's friend, so you're my friend, too. Is it cool if I call you Leo?" He acted as if he were the master of the house. Even I, as dense as I was, could read the writing on the wall from Scarlett's parents. I stopped coming over as often. Mr. Vance offered to have the family driver pick up Ethan for school along with us. My seat, which used to be next to Scarlett, was moved to the front, next to the driver. Later, they always had to attend various parties together. Mrs. Vance tactfully suggested sending a separate car just for me. That car picked me up for a few days. Then the driver quit, and the arrangement was quietly dropped. My dad cursed me out for being useless, furious at me for not living up to his expectations. "Can't you just suck up to them? Can't you suck up to Scarlett? Weren't you so lively and likable when you were a kid? Who are you trying to impress with that long face all day?" I sat by my mother's hospital bed, looking at her comatose form without a word. But he kept rambling. "What's the point of you coming to see her every day? She's been in a vegetative state for over a year and hasn't woken up. If you keep acting like a block of wood and do nothing, and Miss Vance gets tired of you, the Vances might cut off the funding for your mom's treatment." But Scarlett hadn't come looking for me in a long time. Nothing I did would have mattered. But my dad's words hit home. He wouldn't pay a single cent for my mom's medical care. The Vance family was footing the entire bill. So, I shed my childhood naivete and began to carefully watch everyone's expressions. Scarlett would only be nice to me if I acted like I was good friends with Ethan. Mrs. and Mr. Vance would only look satisfied if I helped bring the two of them together. I became tactful and sensible. I started to imitate my father, learning how to please the Vances. Sucking up to Ethan, sucking up to Scarlett. I was becoming more and more like my dad. Ethan had two loyal cronies, Troy and Jax. They'd been clinging to him since they were kids, absolutely adoring him. During the summer before high school, these two followed Ethan, moved to our area, and transferred to our school. Their families were all friends, and they even co-owned a company together. Troy and Scarlett had known each other since they were little. So, a 5-person clique was officially formed, and we spent most of that summer together. Troy was arrogant and aggressive. Jax was a flirtatious playboy. Two guard dogs flanking Ethan, only showing their softer side to him. Both were typical rich brats with nasty tempers. From the day they learned my identity, they never showed me an ounce of respect. But Ethan would sling his arm around me, affectionately calling me Leo. Following his lead, they were polite enough to my face. But the distance between us was palpable. With two aggressive guys protecting him, Scarlett felt the serious threat of two rivals. The three of them pretended to be the best of friends in front of Ethan. Behind the scenes, it was a war zone as they fought fiercely for his attention. I didn't spend any time alone with Scarlett that whole summer, let alone have a private conversation. It was as if she had completely forgotten about her old friend. After school started, strings were pulled, and we all ended up in the same class. Scarlett and I had always been desk partners, but this time, I stood silently to the side, watching them fight for the seat next to Ethan. As expected, Scarlett won. Her good grades allowed her to choose first. Troy and Jax weren't happy. They shot her a glare, then fought over the seat behind Ethan, ending up as desk partners. I picked up my backpack, intending to sit in front of Ethan and Scarlett, but Troy and Jax blocked my way. Troy stretched out his long leg, blocking the aisle, and grinned arrogantly. "Hey Quinn, didn't you see that mutt over there doesn't have a desk partner? Go sit with her." The girl Troy called Mutt had a facial deformity. She sat behind Jax, cowering in her seat, too afraid to make a sound. I instinctively looked at Scarlett. She was talking to Ethan, her eyes crinkling with a smile. Jax glanced at her and then lowered his voice, a smirk on his face. "You think she's gonna stick up for you? Sit down." Scarlett definitely wasn't gonna stick up for me. I gave them a blank look, then silently put down my backpack and sat behind them. The girl they called Mutt and I became the targets of their bullying. She was their errand girl, and my freshly finished homework would be snatched by Troy from the front and turned in as his own. Eventually, it evolved into me doing their homework for them. I became quiet and withdrawn. I avoided speaking in front of the four of them as much as possible, and as long as their demands weren't too outrageous, I did what they asked. I would occasionally talk to my desk partner. She was great at math and had noticed several times that I would solve a problem correctly, only to erase the answer and change it. She once whispered to me, "The teacher went over that final challenge problem today, and the answer was the same as what you calculated yesterday. Why did you write it down wrong on purpose?" I glanced up at the group of four laughing and joking in front of us and answered softly, "Neither Scarlett nor Ethan got it right, so I can't get it right either." Because I was always helping her, Troy would mock me and deliberately spread rumors that Mutt and I were a couple. I couldn't be bothered with their gossip and teasing. But later, when my desk partner actually confessed her feelings to me in private, Jax overheard. That night, Troy and his friends cornered her in an alley and beat her so badly she ended up in the hospital. When I rushed to the hospital, her family, who had accepted a settlement, didn't dare take their anger out on Troy and his crew. They just pointed at me, yelling and shoving. Jax pulled them away, while Troy stood to the side, arms crossed, a provocative smirk on his face, as if he were waiting for me to be grateful. But I just stared at them coldly. I suppressed the overwhelming urge to lunge at them with everything I had. From then on, the other students in my class lumped me in with those rich brats, treating me with a mixture of disgust and fear. I didn't belong to their class, and my own class now rejected me. For my ingratitude, Troy and Jax's attitude toward me grew even worse. And Scarlett? She was with Ethan, oblivious to the world outside her window. It wasn't until my mother's life hung by a thread that I, drenched in rain, burst into a glitzy, glamorous party for the first time to find Scarlett for help. Outside the VIP lounge, I could see Scarlett adjusting the bow tie on Ethan's suit. The young man's clear voice was filled with a naive curiosity. "Scarlett, they say you and Leo Quinn are childhood sweethearts. Were you two really close before?" My heart pounded from running. My wet hair stuck to my forehead. I stared intently at Scarlett. The girl's voice was casual, tinged with contempt. Childhood sweethearts? He's just the help. Felt like my heart had been crushed. My vision blurred as rainwater streamed down my face. My phone rang. It was the hospital. My mother had stopped breathing. She was pronounced dead. The ringing startled them. They saw me and Ethan jumped. Scarlett stared at me, stunned. Her lips moved, trying to say something. I looked at her and managed to force a smile. I hadn't smiled in a long time. I gave her one last smile. "Scarlett, my mother is dead." Then, ignoring whatever they tried to say or explain, I turned numbly and dragged my heavy feet away. 2 months later, I returned to school. Like a lifeless corpse. Everything was the same. Ethan acted like nothing had happened and asked with fake concern how I was. Scarlett's lips trembled. "Are you okay?" My face was a mask, devoid of any emotion. "I'm fine. Thank you for your concern, Miss Vance." My eyes moved to my desk. It was empty. The girl had transferred. Troy slammed his homework down on my desk. I showed no reaction, simply taking it and pulling out my phone to show a payment QR code. "Mr. Troy, ghostwriting homework is priced daily. $200 per person." Troy frowned, then turned to the other three and exclaimed dramatically, "Did you guys hear that? Leo Quinn is asking us for money now." I stood perfectly still, ignoring their teasing and ridicule. Scarlett frowned slightly. "Leo, why have you become like this? Do you really need the money?" Jack sneered. "Isn't his dad making millions a year at your family's company? Don't you guys cover all his expenses? And he still has the nerve to ask us for money?" Ethan frowned. "Troy, you guys should stop forcing him to do your homework. If he doesn't want to help, just let it go." Troy scoffed, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "Aren't classmates supposed to help each other out? If you didn't want to help, you could have just said so." I lit up my phone screen again. "My apologies, gentlemen. Even the help needs to get paid." Troy's face went cold. He scanned a code and transferred tens of thousands of dollars to me. Then he gathered all their homework and slammed it down in front of me. "You want money, right? Then you do all of it. Make one mistake, and don't blame me for what happens." I lowered my eyes, picked up my pen, and without a word, began to write. And I kept writing until today. I put Ethan's phone back, then placed the freshly completed homework on each of their desks. Then I pushed open the classroom door and slowly walked out of the school, the motion-activated lights flickering on around me. I was used to everyone else's disgust, but I never expected that out of the 4 people in that private group. The one who wanted to get rid of me the most was Scarlett. The same Scarlett who I grew up with, the same Scarlett I took a bullet for. When a blind person regains their sight, the first thing they throw away is their cane. She wanted to throw me away too. But Scarlett, did you know? I've been waiting for this day for a long time too. For 10 years I've wanted to be free of you, free of my dad, free of the Vance family. The Chicago night was as bright as day. Even at 10 o'clock, the streets were still crowded. My face felt hot and a little itchy. I touched it and felt tears. So I was crying. The smoky smell of a street vendor's grill hit me. I bought a slice of pizza and sat on the curb, eating it slowly. I had never felt so liberated as I did today. They were actually going abroad. What took them so long? I was crying, but it felt like I was laughing too. Graduation was just around the corner, and that was also the day I would turn 18. How could three good things happen at the same time? I wandered around for a long time before reluctantly hailing a cab home. My dad was on the phone, nodding and bowing to the person on the other end. After hanging up, he saw me come in and cursed under his breath. You weren't with them again? Useless. Can't you do the homework faster? I could have, but I didn't want to. That way I had an excuse not to follow them around. I couldn't be bothered to deal with him. I pushed open the door to my room like a zombie. After my mom died, he had nothing left to threaten me with. Once the door was closed, all I could hear was his impotent rage. The next day was the school festival. I was planning to skip it, but Ethan sent me a message. When I arrived at the backstage dressing room, all three of them were there. Ethan was dressed in a custom-made performance outfit. The tailored design accentuated his tall, athletic build, making him devastatingly handsome. Troy and Jax were fawning over him, bustling around him, treating him like he was the most important person in the world. Ethan said, "Hey, you three, stop crowding around me. I still need to practice." Seeing me walk in, he waved and strode towards me. "Leo, you're here. They're just getting in the way. I told them not to come. See how much trouble they are?" Jax let out a wolf whistle. "If we didn't come, how would you manage, you clumsy oaf?" Ethan slung an arm around my shoulder. "Leo can help me. Leo, what do you think of my outfit today? Does it look good?" Troy sneered. "What would he know? Look at what he's wearing today. A total ugly duckling." In the mirror, I was wearing a black tracksuit with a baseball cap and a mask. I did look pretty grimy. "How can you say that about someone?" Ethan pretended to be angry and scolded Troy. Troy stood up straight, glanced at me and said mockingly, "He is an ugly freak. He's not handsome like you. He'd still be ugly even if he dressed up." "Troy," Ethan said, displeased. Jax saw the situation and patted Troy on the back to smooth things over. "All right, it's Ethan's big day. Behave yourself. Don't cause any trouble." Troy quickly apologized to Ethan, who laughed it off. The subject was changed. Ethan's family stylist and I helped him with his hair and makeup while I listened to the four of them discuss their summer vacation plans. There was a crease on the hem of his costume. I instinctively reached out to smooth it. Smack! Ethan yelped, and my hand instantly turned red and swollen. "Don't touch it." The conversation among the other three immediately stopped. Scarlett shot up and rushed to Ethan's side, frowning at me. "What happened?" Ethan seemed startled. Troy and Jax also crowded around, glaring at me. Ethan, carefully surrounded by the three of them, frowned and looked up at me. "The fabric of this costume is very delicate. It wrinkles and marks easily. Please don't touch it, okay?" I quickly tried to explain. There was a crease. Ethan frowned again. "I know you probably just wanted to touch it and see, but Scarlett went through a lot of trouble to get a master designer to rush this for me. It's very important for my performance." I fell silent for a moment. "Sorry." Troy shot me a look and complained to Ethan. "I told you he was clumsy. This low-class guy has never seen anything nice. What if he ruined your expensive clothes?" Scarlett glanced at me. "Ethan's clothes are handled by professionals. From now on, ask him before you touch any of his things." Jax shoved me aside. "Ethan called you here to help with the props. Go with that teacher and learn the cues. Don't come over here unless you have to." I squatted in a corner, distractedly memorizing the cues, and casually glanced their way. It seemed my little incident was already forgotten. I saw them talking about something else, making Ethan laugh again. After the festival performance started, the rich kids sat in the front row, waiting to watch Ethan dance. But I was stuck in the dusty prop room backstage, watching the stage on a monitor. Soon it was Ethan's turn. The moment he appeared, graceful as a prince, the entire auditorium fell silent. A second later, students were all raising their phones to record and take pictures. On stage, Ethan was like a sprite, his movements agile and fluid, as beautiful as a painting against the backdrop. Just as the dance was about to end, I finished setting all the props according to the plan and was about to head home. Suddenly, I heard a piercing scream. Commotion erupted outside. I frowned and quickly turned back. Ethan had collapsed on stage in pain, his face deathly pale. A prop I had never seen before rolled near his foot. I was shocked and ran over to help him up. But Scarlett, rushing up like a madwoman, shoved me hard. I was thrown to the ground, my head hitting the sharp corner of a wooden shelf with a sickening crack. My vision went black. The last thing I saw was Scarlett's back as she held Ethan. I heard Troy's furious voice, angrier than Scarlett for not getting there first. Who was in charge of props? Where did this stupid ball come from? The student he was grilling jumped, pointing a trembling finger at me. Leo Quinn was in charge of the props for Ethan's performance. Troy's eyes were bloodshot as he strode towards me. He grabbed me off the floor. Leo Quinn, don't think you can get away with this by playing dead. I'm gonna kill you. Suddenly, the students around us started screaming. Blood! His head is bleeding. Blood? What blood? Troy's brow furrowed, and he instinctively reached for the back of his head. The blood on his hand was shocking. Troy's face went pale. He roared at the crowd gathering around. What are you all crowding around for? Call an ambulance, now. Troy's voice trembled as he tried to find a pressure point on my face. Leo? Stop shaking him. You idiot. Jax pushed through the crowd, checked for my breath, and frowned. He's really out cold. We need to get him to a hospital. The crowd panicked, murmuring that someone was going to die. The auditorium was in chaos. The school nurse arrived with a stretcher, pushing everyone away. Quick! Apply pressure to stop the bleeding. Get him on the stretcher. We can't wait for the ambulance. He needs to go to the hospital immediately. The school was equipped with professional emergency gear, and the nearest hospital was only a 10-minute drive away. Leo Quinn was loaded into the school's medical transport vehicle. Troy and Jax, along with a few school administrators, got in as well. The nurse, busy applying pressure, said grimly that the situation looked bad. The two of them followed closely as Leo was rushed into the emergency room. Jax pulled Troy aside, making way for the emergency doctors they had called. You weren't the one who pushed him. What are you panicking for? Jax stared at the glowing light of the ER, his thoughts unreadable. On the way here, I contacted the best neurosurgeon. He'll be here in 10 minutes. Troy was frozen stiff, completely stunned. Is he going to die? But Jax just scoffed. If Leo Quinn really dies, Scarlett is in for a world of trouble. She really was kidnapped when she was a kid. Leo took a bullet for her to save her. Do you think she'd be alive today otherwise? Troy was stunned. That story is true? But didn't Ethan say Leo's dad exaggerated it to leech off the Vances? Jack said, I checked. It's true. Troy. Then how could Scarlett let us bully him all this time? Troy froze. Holy shit, he cursed, then dialed a number, but the call was rejected. Jack sneered. She thinks she can get away with it by not answering? The whole school saw what happened today. She dug her own grave, so we might as well help push her in. Now the Quinns, father and son, really have a reason to leech off her. Then he pulled out his phone and dialed another number. Hello, Mr. Vance. An hour later, another team of top doctors brought in by the Vance family entered the ER. Mr. Quinn knelt at the door of the emergency room in front of everyone, repeatedly slapping his own face. He cried as he slapped himself. Leo, my boy, Dad is so sorry. I'm the one who ruined you. I never should have sent you to Miss Vance's side when you were a kid. Old Quinn, don't be like this. Let's talk things out, Mrs. Vance said, her face pale, trying to pull him up with a forced smile. I've doomed you. Even Mr. Vance's bodyguards couldn't pull Mr. Quinn up. He continued to wail. When you were 10, you almost died saving Miss Vance. That bullet was right next to your heart. You were in the ICU for months. My son, why is your life so hard? You've only been to the hospital twice in your entire life. Mr. Vance bent down to try and pull him up, Old Quinn, this must be a misunderstanding. Leo will be fine. When Scarlett gets here, I'll give her a good talking to. My life is so bitter. Mr. Quinn ignored him completely, beating his chest and wailing. My son and I have such bitter lives. I work my fingers to the bone for the company. My son acts as a servant and takes a bullet for Miss Vance. And this is how he's treated. He's my only son. Mr. Vance's expression was grim. He turned to his assistant and asked impatiently, "Where did that little monster go? Why isn't she here yet? Causing all this trouble? Where is she hiding?" The assistant showed him the location on his phone, his tone hesitant. "Mr. Vance, the young miss isn't answering her phone. The location shows that she's also in this hospital." Scarlett hung up the phone. One call after another. Annoyed, she just turned her phone off. "What's wrong, Scarlett?" Ethan, in his hospital bed, had just been settled in. His sprained ankle wasn't serious, and a nurse was applying medicine and massaging it. Scarlett suppressed the irritation in her eyes and forced a gentle smile. "It's nothing. Just my dad's assistant. Leo probably told my dad what happened today." Ethan bit his lip. "Will your dad scold you? But you only bumped into Leo by accident. It's all my fault. If only I had seen that ball. If I hadn't fallen, you wouldn't have been in such a hurry. I'll go apologize to Leo later. If your dad scolds you, just blame it on me." Scarlett frowned. "Why should you apologize to him? Leo Quinn should be apologizing to you. I can't believe he would do something like this out of jealousy." Ethan lowered his eyes, his handsome face filled with forbearance, looking particularly pitiful. "Leo probably didn't do it on purpose. Don't be too hard on him. He's only targeting me because of you. He did save you after all. I don't want to make things difficult for you. Does saving me once mean he can hold it over my head for a lifetime?" Scarlett irritably massaged her temples. "His family is always using the past to hold things over us. It's never ending. And that's no excuse for him to use such low-handed tactics to hurt you. Didn't my family clean up his mess? If it weren't for you being so kind, Ethan, anyone else would never have let him off the hook." As Ethan was softly comforting her, a chaotic rush of footsteps sounded from outside. The assistant burst in with a group of people, panting. Scarlett's brows, which had just been smoothed by Ethan's words, were about to furrow again. But the next sentence left her frozen in place. "Why, young miss, you have to go over there. Mr. Vance is furious." Mr. Quinn hit his head and was rushed to the ER. Ethan gasped. "What? How could that happen? Scarlett? Scarlett?" Scarlett just stood there, completely oblivious to Ethan's calls. The doctor said Mr. Quinn's condition might be critical. If they can't save him tonight, he might. Before he could finish, Scarlett shoved him aside and bolted out the door. The assistant was stunned for a moment. Then he and the others quickly followed to lead the way. Scarlett ran as fast as she could, the wind whistling in her ears, her mind flashing back to 7 years ago. She had run just like this back then, her vision blurred by tears, only to be stopped at the door of the emergency room. A younger her had cried her heart out, praying to any god to let him live. Now her throat was too raw to make a sound. She just ran forward numbly. A dark crowd of people was gathered outside the ER. The moment they saw her, all their heads snapped in her direction. The hot-tempered Troy lunged forward and punched her, but was immediately pulled back by others. "Scarlett, are you even human? You push him and just walk away?" He passed out on the spot. "Did you know that? He bled all the way here." Scarlett's lips moved, trying to say something, but a sharp slap from her father cut her off. "You monster! Get over here and apologize to your Uncle Quinn." Scarlett was dragged to the front. Mr. Quinn, who was kneeling and wailing, saw her and immediately grabbed her arm. The 40-something man knelt before her, tears streaming down his face. "Miss Vance, Leo grew up with you. Have you forgotten he saved your life? That bullet the kidnapper fired was meant for you. What did you say back then? You told everyone you would protect him for the rest of your life. But then you fell for Mr. Ethan, And did Leo say anything? You treat him like this. Your whole group bullies him, making him serve you tea and water like a servant. Have you forgotten who helped you overcome your social anxiety when you were a kid? Scarlett stared blankly at the man crying on the floor, unable to say a word. Fine. I don't want anything now. I quit. Just give me my son back. Give me my son back. Old Quinn, Old Quinn. Mr. Vance hurriedly tried to stop him, his tone soft for the first time. You're just saying that out of anger. You're doing a great job. The company still needs your help. Scarlett didn't do it on purpose. Don't worry. I'll definitely give you a proper explanation. Leo will be fine. Get up, please. I'm planning to promote you to general manager. You can't fall apart now. Mr. Vance pleaded and made all sorts of promises. Finally, Mr. Quinn wiped his tears and allowed himself to be helped up, muttering about his bitter fate. Scarlett seemed to have lost the ability to speak, just standing there in a daze. After calming Mr. Quinn down, Mr. Vance pulled her aside to a deserted corner, his brows furrowed. His tone was one of disappointment and anger. Don't you have any sense of proportion? Why did you push him? Now look, whether he wakes up or not, we're going to have to compensate his father with company shares. Don't you know his father is handling a very important project for me right now? Do you have any idea how many company secrets Leo Quinn's father has access to? Didn't I tell you to handle Leo Quinn carefully? Even if you like Ethan, you can't be too cold to him. Do you know how much a man who's in love with you can do for you? We had his IQ tested when he was a kid and thought he was a genius, even considered making him our son-in-law. Who knew he'd suddenly become so useless these past few years? Scarlett felt as if her soul had been drained from her body. She remained silent in the face of her father's relentless accusations. The light in the emergency room stayed on all night. It wasn't until the middle of the night that the doctors finally came out. Troy and Jax were the fastest, rushing over immediately. Mr. Quinn and Scarlett's parents also crowded around. Everyone had been waiting in terrified anticipation for the result. The doctors let out a collective sigh of relief, exhausted but visibly pleased, announcing they had won the battle against death. Scarlett's heart stopped for a second. Everyone surged forward but was held back. Leo Quinn was wheeled out, his head wrapped in bandages. His bloodless face was covered by a respirator, connected to a countless, dense web of wires and 4 tubes. He had survived. I've been on the brink of death twice now. So this time, starting from the beginning, 10 years of my life flashed before my eyes like a movie. Memories I had deliberately forgotten and buried broke through the surface. The pain was hidden in the quiet years, a dampness in my life that always throbbed with a secret ache. I could no longer pretend everything was fine. I've always been a spineless, weak person. My parents split up when I was 6. My dad always said it was because I was disobedient that I drove my mom away. So I started being very, very obedient, hoping my mom would come back for me. When we first moved to Chicago, my dad struggled at work. He always came home angry about something, and no matter what I did, he was never satisfied. I got hit a lot back then. After hitting me, he would hold me and cry, telling me how hard his life was. Actually, the first time I met Scarlett, I didn't like her. Not only did I not like her, I didn't like anyone else in that mansion either. The people who were from a different world than me from head to toe. The people who looked me up and down with arrogant, dismissive eyes and then sneered. I was a jarring anomaly there. After being chosen by Scarlett, every time I went to the Vance estate, I felt a suffocating pressure. But I didn't dare disobey my dad. So I had to pretend I loved playing with Scarlett. This girl was strange, had a huge temper, and was my dad's boss's daughter. My dad had to suck up to her parents, so I had to suck up to her. But the lavish lifestyle at the Vances quickly dazzled me. I got to eat cakes and delicacies I could never have afforded in my life. My material desires, which had never been satisfied, were easily granted by them. Little Scarlett was moody and bossy. She wouldn't let me play with other kids, not even letting me talk to them for more than a few sentences. But back home, I was the king of the kids, super popular. Being trapped by her side, only able to play with her, didn't feel good. Scarlett was arrogant. She liked smart playmates who could understand her, but not ones who were too smart. After Mr. Vance had my IQ tested, he was very pleased. But Scarlett, staring at my score, which was clearly higher than hers, had a sullen look on her face. If she couldn't solve a problem that I could, she would be unhappy. If I was quicker than her, she would be unhappy. In the Vance household, Scarlett's happiness was paramount. So I had to pretend my abilities were about the same as hers. And that's when my true nature began to be suppressed. It's been suppressed to this day. Mrs. Vance used to say that Scarlett needed me, that she couldn't live without me. So I was forced to stay by her side. Day after day, year after year. Like a bird with broken wings, Scarlett's side was a gilded cage. We were always together. I spent more time with her than anyone else. Whatever she did, I had to do too. Were those days happy? I guess so. Were those days painful? Yes, they were. When I was 10, my mom heard I'd been shot and was in the hospital. She traveled thousands of miles to see me. My son is a person, not a loyal servant of the Vance family who's supposed to die for them. You can be their slave yourself, but don't drag my son into it. Is this the good job you were talking about? Then she and my dad had the biggest fight they'd ever had. It turned out they had only been separated. Now she wanted a divorce and was fighting for my custody. My mom refused Mrs. Vance's check and didn't give her the time of day. Mrs. Vance's face fell. My mom held my hand and asked if I wanted to go with her. I missed her so much. I cried and said I wanted to go home with her. The next day, Scarlett found out. Her expression was dark as she told me I wasn't allowed to leave. I was so angry at her for clinging to me and not letting me go. But just as I was packing my small bag, custody was awarded to my dad. My dad had a high income and the Vance Corporation's professional lawyers. My mom didn't stand a chance. Little Scarlett looked triumphant as she threw my bag back at me. Leo, I won't let you go. You can't leave. My first escape attempt failed. In my second year of middle school, when I was 13, my mom's career took off. She came back fully prepared this time. She was going to take me abroad for further studies, with her as my guardian. We could finally leave. That time, things went surprisingly smoothly. My dad and the Vances couldn't stop my mom and me anymore. Scarlett was popular by then, highly socialized. I felt she didn't need me anymore. I said goodbye to her in a good mood. I told her I'd send her postcards and souvenirs from there. Scarlett had just returned from a dinner party. Hearing this, her face darkened. She took off her coat and threw it to a maid. She walked right past me without a word. A maid who had worked for the family for decades couldn't bear to watch anymore and tried to persuade me. Young Master Leo, why are you doing this? The Vances are raising you to marry into the family. If you stay, you can marry in. Why leave with your mother? I was 13, and I still didn't understand why I had to marry Scarlett. I didn't want to spend the rest of my life with her. I had already been at her house for 5 years. I fantasized about living with my mom in a foreign country. I sat by the door, waiting for her to pick me up. Instead, what came was the news that she had been in a car accident on her way. The other driver was drunk and suddenly swerved into her lane. My mom didn't die on the spot, but she fell into a vegetative state. The driver was in his 50s or 60s, had no family, and had cancer. He died less than 6 months after being released on medical parole. But my mother was in her prime at the peak of her career. She had never remarried, had no other children. She only had me. She was supposed to pick me up today so we could go home together. But on her way to get me, she fell into a sleep she would never wake from. Outside the emergency room, I was freezing cold. Scarlett was the first to arrive. She walked over quickly, took off her coat, and wrapped it around me. The girl hugged me, her warm voice inexplicably cold. You see, Leo? The only person you can rely on is me. Her embrace was warm, but I shivered in her arms. My second escape attempt failed. From then on, I spent all my time at the hospital. I had missed my mom for 7 years, and we were so close. Why did it have to turn out this way? Scarlett went from patiently comforting me to threatening me with a cold face. For the first time, I didn't go along with her wishes. I stopped following her around every day. My life became a monotonous routine of school, hospital, and home. After I pulled my hand away from her one too many times, Scarlett got angry. It seems I've been spoiling you too much. Scarlett had a maid pack up all my clothes and belongings and throw them back at my dad's place, kicking me out of the Vance mansion. Now, she was the one who refused to see me. The proud heiress was waiting for me to apologize, to bow my head and coax her like I used to. But I just stayed by my mom's bedside, not saying a single word of reconciliation for months. I had been coaxing her for 7 years. I really didn't want to do it anymore. Even before Ethan showed up, cracks had already formed in my relationship with Scarlett. The next time I heard about her, Ethan was by her side, a perfect match in family background and looks. So one day after class, I congratulated her. I was genuinely happy for her at that moment. I said, "Scarlett, I'm happy for you." But Scarlett stopped, her face instantly turning dark. She didn't respond to my congratulations and continued her cold war with me. As I was packing my bag after school to go see my mom, Scarlett suddenly spoke. Her voice was cold. "Leo, do you think you can survive like you do now without my protection?" I opened my mouth to say something, but she had already pushed past me to go find Ethan. Soon after, Ethan's 2 cronies, Troy and Jax, arrived, and I understood what she meant. Scarlett stood by and watched as I became the target of Troy and Jax's bullying. Sometimes, after so long, I couldn't tell and I didn't dare to confirm. Was Scarlett just angry with me? Or did she truly despise me? The word despise was so vivid. I was like a beautiful pet, a toy she liked to play with. Now that she was tired of me, she just tossed me aside, and others could come and step on me. Yes, to her, Ethan, Troy, and Jax were all people of her class, just like her. Even if she didn't particularly like Troy and Jax, she still respected them. For the past 7 years, she had liked me, but she didn't even have the same respect for me as she did for them. So I endured. My mother was still being treated in the Vance family's hospital, so I endured. But my mother died. Outside the hospital, a torrential downpour. I cried my heart out over her body. Before I went to find Scarlett, she had already been on the brink of death. Her condition had improved greatly those few days. She had woken up and talked to me a lot. She said, "It's so good. My Leo has grown up so much. You're the one I worried about the most." She said, "I'm sorry, it's all my fault. When you were 6 and your dad took you away, I wasn't able to take care of you. In the future, never give up your career or your dignity for anyone. You have to rely on yourself first." I said, "Mom, I don't blame you. I'm not happy here. Get well soon, and I'll go home with you." She smiled and said yes. "Okay, I'll take you home." But she lied to me. It was a final burst of energy before the end. My mom said one last thing to me. "Run, Leo. Run as far as you can. Mom can't go home with you anymore." She left me the money in her account and the contact information of her colleagues and friends. On that day, I lost the only person in the world who loved me. My dad sold me out for his own gain, a hypocritical schemer. When I was shot, he was secretly glad that my actions had put the Vances in our debt. He didn't care if I was happy or sad. As I grew older, I realized he didn't love me at all. He even had several mistresses on the side. My childhood bond with Scarlett was completely shattered that day. Shattered by her words, "Childhood sweethearts? He's just the help." After the funeral, I took my ID and household registration documents and ran. Afraid my dad would catch me, I didn't dare take any trains or planes. I hired a long-distance taxi. I carried her ashes in my bag, traveling 1,000 miles back to the hometown I had left as a child. My maternal grandparents had also passed away. After burying my mother, I didn't dare stay in a hotel that required registration, so I found a rental in an old part of the city and hid for over a month. I was my dad's cash cow for leaning on the Vances. He would never let me go. They reported me to the police and found me. In front of the officers, he said I was a rebellious kid who had run away from home. I wasn't an adult yet. Even though I expressed a strong desire not to go with my dad, he was still my legal guardian. After a stalemate at the police station for several days, people from the Vance family came with a lawyer and forcibly took me back. My third escape attempt failed. My heart was dead as I was pushed into the car. My dad relentlessly accused me of being willful and reckless. "You're being ridiculous. You've learned to run away from home. All because Miss Vance said one thing to you. Do you know how worried Miss Vance was? She's been looking for you. Go back and apologize to her." But as soon as I got back, I locked myself in my room and refused to see anyone. And as expected, Scarlett didn't come looking for me. I went back to school a month later. I wasn't a child anymore. This time, my endurance was deeper, more patient. I was preparing for my fourth and final escape. I had two paths before me. Either my dad died or I waited until I was 18. Besides, I still had a lot to do. In fact, ever since my mom's accident when I was 13, I had never given up investigating what happened. I had my ways. The programming classes I took with Scarlett as a child, I had a unique talent for it. A computer, the invisible network. No matter how brilliant I was at it, Scarlett would never see it. During that escape, I actually met someone else, the successor to the CEO of the company my mom used to work for. The new president who had just taken over the group. With a grand plan in my heart, the past 2 years of humiliation and endurance didn't seem so hard to bear. After all, I was much luckier than King Gojin of you. It was just listening to their sneers, running errands for them, doing their homework, being on call, and getting paid for it. I counted down the days until I turned 18. That was the distance to my freedom. But when my head hit the ground, I couldn't help but feel a surge of resentment towards Scarlett, whom I had long given up on. The person who, as a child, promised to protect me for a lifetime, was the only one who wielded the knife that stabbed me. When I opened my eyes, the first face I saw was Scarlett's. There were heavy, dark circles under her eyes. She looked utterly exhausted, and her usually impeccable suit was creased and wrinkled. Scarlett was keeping vigil by my bed. When she saw my eyes open, she jumped up in surprise. "Leo? Leo, you're awake." Two people dozing on the sofa nearby immediately got up and walked over. I thought I was hallucinating. I was actually seeing Troy and Jax. The most ironic thing was my dad wasn't in the hospital room, but the people I hated the most were. "Leo?" Scarlett's face drew closer, her expression filled with anxiety. But I just looked at her blankly. "Who are you?" The glass in Scarlett's hand slipped and shattered. The room fell silent. She was stunned, in disbelief. "Leo, you're joking, right? How could you not remember me? How could you forget? All right, does he remember that you were the one who pushed him?" Jax sauntered over. "Hey, do you remember who I am?" I sneered inwardly but kept my face blank and shook my head. "Troy, no way. Did he really lose his memory?" He reached out to touch my head, but I recoiled in disgust and stared out the window. But Scarlett was acting like she had lost her mind. "This is impossible. Leo, you really don't remember me? Leo." Her voice was incredibly hoarse, on the verge of breaking down. Scarlett's hands trembled as she grabbed my shoulders, forcing me to look at her. "Leo, look at me. It's me, Scarlett." Her voice sounded like she was about to cry, but I just looked at her with the eyes of a stranger, blank and unmoved. My cold gaze seemed to trigger something in Scarlett, and she began to shake my shoulders frantically. "Scarlett, what the hell are you doing?" He just woke up. Troy yanked Scarlett away, but her fingers were clenched so tightly that I was pulled along with them. I was getting annoyed. I immediately clutched my head and pretended to be in immense pain. "It hurts. My head hurts so much." Scarlett instantly let go. "Leo," she didn't get to finish before Troy and Jax dragged her away. In the hospital room, within just 2 hours, I had said the same thing to countless people. "Who are you? I don't remember you," including my dad. I acted like I didn't know him at all, and when he said he was my father, I put on a look of complete disbelief. I listened from my room as the doctor told them I might have lost my memory due to injury to a certain part of my brain. The patient's amnesia may be temporary, or it may be permanent. But I have to give you a heads up. We need to observe him for other issues, and you should be prepared for the possibility that he may not return to his pre-injury state. As Mr. Quinn listened, he instantly sensed something was wrong. Doctor, are you saying my son might be simple-minded? The doctor, we can't rule out that possibility. My poor son. He started wailing again. What will you do in the future? If you're simple-minded, who will want you? Scarlett's parents' faces turned awkward at his words. The implication was so obvious. Their daughter would have to be responsible. Mrs. Vance tried to call Scarlett, but she was sitting in a corner, her face in her hands, looking completely lost. I was getting tired of the noise. I acted like I was in pain and had the nurses shoo them away. It was quite a scene after I woke up. People came in waves, none of whom I wanted to see. But some people I didn't want to see, the hospital couldn't stop from coming in. Mr. and Mrs. Vance came, their fake concern really just a way to find out how I was recovering. My dad came, his words hinting that whether I was simple-minded or not, I should act like it, preferably to the point of being unable to care for myself. Best to cling to Scarlett, act like I couldn't live without her. He had just been appointed general manager of the company yesterday. Beneath his superficial sadness was an unconcealable glee. You two were childhood sweethearts. If it weren't for that brat from the Ethan family seducing Miss Vance, you would have been her fiancé. Would Dad ever harm you? You have to do as I say. I nodded obediently. Ethan came too, under the guise of apologizing on Scarlett's behalf, but in reality, twisting the events of that day. He claimed I had tampered with things, that I was jealous of him for being liked by Scarlett. I don't blame you anymore, Leo. Ethan's expression was full of pity, as if I had really done something to hurt him. He looked down at me on the hospital bed, my expression cold. But could you please not pressure Scarlett anymore? She doesn't like you. If she did, how could she have pushed you like that? Oh, sorry. Scarlett feels very guilty and remorseful right now. She's already in a lot of pain. If you use this incident to force her, all you'll get is her guilt and compensation. But what happens over time? She'll resent you, Leo, because you forced her to marry you. I said, oh. So what are you trying to say? I don't know you and I can't tell any of you people apart. My words choked him. His gentle expression almost cracked. What I mean is, whatever compensation you want, we can give it to you. I nodded. In that case, I don't want to see you. Can you get out now? Ethan left in a huff and Scarlett came again. She looked even more haggard. Her expression hurt as she looked at me. Leo. I remembered my dad's words clearly. The moment she said one word, I threw a pillow at her. Then I clutched my head, screamed, and started frantically pressing the call button for the nurse. Scarlett stood there, stunned, letting me throw whatever I could grab at her. She looked as if she had aged several years in an instant, her eyes red as she kept calling Leo, until the doctors and nurses dragged her away. After much discussion and various scans, the doctors came to a conclusion. Scarlett was a trigger for me, worsening my condition and hindering my recovery. Mrs. Vance seemed relieved, but my dad grew anxious, arguing that it was impossible and demanding to question me himself. Of course, the doctors stopped him. He then brought up the story of me saving Scarlett as a child, insisting that Scarlett couldn't just push me and then abandon me. He said she had ruined my life, and if she didn't take responsibility, who would have me? Troy sneered. When he was smart, she couldn't stand him. You think she'll want him now that he's a simpleton? The Vances faces fell, their expressions turning ugly at Troy's words. Scarlett's voice trembled, but for the first time, she responded to my dad's days of pressure. Her voice was hoarse. I'll take responsibility. I'll marry him. I want him. But Troy got agitated. He doesn't even remember you. You think just because he has amnesia and has become simple, all the crap you did can be wiped clean. Scarlett yelled back. You were the one who always bullied him. You all did. Who was it that always made him do your homework and run your errands? Troy, you have the nerve to say that. Troy was too stunned to argue, about to lunge at her before Jax held him back. Jax sneered, "You're right. We bullied him, but you were the one who isolated and excluded him, weren't you? The four of us who's clean. Who hasn't bullied him? But Scarlett, he was your friend. You were the one who allowed us to treat him like that. Everything he's endured these past 3 years was with your silent approval." Troy. Exactly. Do you dare tell Leo Quinn what you told us? You said he was clinging to you, that his family was driving you crazy. You said you liked guys like Ethan. Scarlett's chest heaved with anger, but she couldn't say a word in her defense. She had given Leo Quinn the cold shoulder for 4 years. It started with a few months of the silent treatment, but Leo had guts. He never once bowed his head or tried to make peace with her. For years, and he had never once come to her to reconcile. No, he came once. But what did she say then? Childhood sweethearts? He's just the help. And after that, Leo never came to her again, never called her Scarlett again. Scarlett was speechless. They parted on bad terms. The next day, during their group visit, I sat with a bandage on my head and expressionlessly filled out a Sudoku puzzle. I had specifically asked the doctor for it. I also asked for a high school physics and math Olympiad level test paper. Half an hour later, I put down my pen and pushed the paper towards them. My dad's face turned white with rage. Mr. Vance's assistant and secretary checked the answers, exclaiming in disbelief, "My God, Mr. Quinn is a genius. This is absolutely incredible. He could totally compete in the Olympiad." Mrs. Vance finally let out a sigh of relief. Her daughter wouldn't have to marry him. Mr. Vance was also very happy. "This is a blessing in disguise, old Quinn," Mr. Vance said, patting his shoulder happily. "You must be overjoyed, right? Your son is back to normal. I knew he had it in him since he was a kid. Say no more. We have to make sure he gets the best treatment. Then I'll have a special team assess his strengths and cultivate him properly. You're going to have a comfortable life with such an outstanding son." Mr. Vance completely avoided mentioning the marriage Scarlett had previously agreed to, instead lavishing praise on me and promising to invest heavily in my development. Troy and Jax's jaws dropped as they stared at the perfect score on the Olympiad paper. Holy crap! Ethan also breathed a quiet sigh of relief, glancing at the test paper and the Sudoku. A flicker of resentful jealousy crossed his eyes before he put on a gentle smile. "Scarlett, this is great news. You can finally relax. Leo is completely fine. You've been at the hospital for so many days. You should go get some rest." But Scarlett didn't move. She stared at me intently. "Leo, you still don't remember?" I turned a page in the Sudoku book and continued filling it out, ignoring her. When my dad came to question me angrily, I used the same trick. I started screaming and clutching my head, scaring the doctors into dragging him away too. Revealing my intelligence in front of them, although it saved me from being forced by my dad to marry Scarlett, had a downside. I don't know what Scarlett said to her dad when she went back, but my name was added to the list of students studying abroad. These 4 people were like a persistent shadow. So I tore up the test papers Mr. Vance sent over, asked for paints and a sketchbook and a computer. Surprisingly, it was Troy and Jax who brought them. I gave them a cold look. Jax plopped down on the sofa and pulled out his phone, looking like he was settling in for a while. Troy handed me the laptop and sketchbook, chattering nonstop. "What brand is this laptop? It's so heavy. I'll buy you a better one. Don't use this one, it looks so old." I ignored him, put the laptop aside, and opened the sketchbook to pass the time. Those two really had the nerve to stay. Troy sat down next to me to see what I was drawing, making small talk. I didn't answer him, but he wasn't annoyed. He'd say a few bad things about Scarlett, then show me pictures and videos of the study abroad location, asking if I liked the scenery in Europe. I told him directly I didn't want to go and that he should stop bothering me. Troy smiled sheepishly and scratched his head. "You seem a lot grumpier since you lost your memory." Jax put down his phone and, using some excuse, sent Troy out to buy me food. He got up, walked over to me, and said with a half-smile, "Leo Quinn, you haven't really lost your memory, have you?" I didn't even look up, just kept sketching. Jax sat down at the foot of the bed, his tone odd. "This is a pretty good move. You've hit Scarlett so hard she's completely disoriented. She doesn't have time to think about Ethan anymore. Compared to your dad's pathetic act, your amnesia trick is much more brilliant. And you've proven it. Scarlett likes you, but it took you nearly dying for her to realize it. How long do you think that'll last?" I continued to sketch, not bothering to answer him. Jax was smart, probably the only one with a brain in that group. He was right. But so what? He had only guessed that I hadn't lost my memory. Why did they all assume I was head over heels in love with Scarlett? Seeing that I wasn't responding, Jax shrugged indifferently. "So cold." He smiled, then placed a USB drive on the bed. "A gift for you. It has the surveillance footage from the stage and backstage that day. The Vances were quick to delete it, but if they had looked a little closer, they might have found out who threw the ball." My heart skipped a beat, but my pen didn't stop moving. There was no way in hell I threw that ball. You didn't need a brain to know it had something to do with Ethan. It was just that Jax's performance was completely bizarre. But I was tempted to ask him one soul-searching question. "Ethan didn't choose you, did he?" Feeling a little hurt? Of course Ethan wouldn't choose him or Troy. They were all rich kids, but their family backgrounds were several levels below Scarlett's. Ethan was after Scarlett from the beginning. These two brothers were just pawns to stir up competition. Seeing no reaction from me, Jax put the USB drive in my pocket. He was probably the one who most wanted Scarlett to change her mind and fall for me, hoping I would take this to Scarlett and completely take down Ethan. Then he could reap the rewards. Jax's hand rested on my shoulder. "But seriously, Scarlett is no good. Her parents don't like you either. But if you're determined to bang your head against that wall, I won't stop you. It's just that you do have other options." His tone at the end was ambiguous, hinting at something. Too bad I didn't give him a single glance. After a while, Jax boredly took his hand back and sat down. These past few days, those two were permanent residents in my hospital room, visiting more often than my own father. Scarlett came every night, close to midnight. She always came in silence, watching me with sad eyes. Sometimes I pretended to be asleep, and she would watch for a long time before leaving. Sometimes when our eyes met, she would look overjoyed, only to have all her emotions extinguished by my "I really don't remember you." She would always whisper to herself, "It's okay. It's okay, Leo. It's okay if you forgot. Some memories aren't good. It's okay that you forgot. I wanted to tell you I was wrong. I know I was wrong. Will you forgive me? I was really wrong. It was my fault. Can we start over?" In the dark, I watched her in silence. Scarlett had never bowed her head to anyone, never apologized. What was she apologizing for? For not letting me go, or for being angry and giving me the cold shoulder? For that he's just the help, or for the 3 years of silent treatment? Or for my mother's car accident? Whichever it was, this apology was too late. I had no intention of accepting it. Just like the plans I had set in motion once started, they would not stop. Scarlett left again, dejected, like an abandoned puppy. I opened my laptop and silently, quickly typed out a string of code, sending a message to the other side. "Everything is in place. I'm incredibly lucky. I recovered well and quickly. In less than a month, I had the bandages off and was discharged from the hospital. There were less than 30 days until finals, but the Vances intention was for me to skip them and go abroad with them. Troy was helping me pack, and my dad was talking to him with a beaming smile. It was a ridiculous situation. There really was no limit to how low a sycophant could go. Last week, Jax told me that Ethan had tearfully begged Troy for help. He cried and begged him to pretend to be good friends with me, so that Scarlett would have no lingering attachments. And Troy actually went along with it. My dad didn't expose him at all, even agreeing with his claims. He had been repeatedly rebuffed by the Vances and was already fed up. If his son couldn't marry the Vance heiress, then becoming friends with the Troy family's son and joining forces in the future wasn't a bad idea. He probably also wanted to provoke Scarlett. This whole drama was so absurd. I had to laugh. Ethan was really at his wit's end, resorting to such desperate measures. But I understood why he didn't ask Jax for help. Because Troy was a simple-minded jock, always the first to charge into battle for him. I didn't argue or deny it. It was too funny. One more thing to annoy everyone before I left. I didn't mind. Troy's acting was quite convincing. Whenever Scarlett came looking for me, he would argue with her as my good friend. That didn't hurt her. What hurt her was my silence. I never denied Troy's words. After a few times, Scarlett became disheartened and stopped coming. But Troy was incredibly annoying. I barely paid him any attention, but he still insisted on pestering me. Remembering the past, I started ordering him around, sending him on all sorts of errands to keep him busy. After Troy left, Jax would jokingly ask how much longer I was going to play this fool. He warned me that Troy might get fed up and stop pretending, and then he'd beat me up. I glanced at him. I really thought this guy was two-faced. Once, while I was walking around the hospital, I overheard them talking in a deserted corner. I eavesdropped. Jax, are you pretending or is this for real? Can't you see that guy is deliberately messing with you, making you go buy all that stuff? Troy got agitated. Of course I'm acting. How could I ever be friends with him? Jax sneered, you'd better be. Dogs fighting dogs. I now believed the four of them probably had 8 different group chats behind each other's backs, yet they still called themselves the Fab Four. After being discharged, I just stayed in my room and refused all visitors. A few days later, the Vances held a party. Scarlett came to my door during the day with a suit. My dad made her wait for a while before leading her up to me. Scarlett's tone was pleading. Leo, this was custom-made to your size. It's a style you used to love. Will you just take a look? Scarlett thought she was going to be rejected again. But I looked up. Let me see it. Scarlett was overjoyed and quickly handed over the suit. I didn't take it. I asked her, when does the party start? In the evening, as the party began, Scarlett carefully slowed her pace, looking back at me from time to time. Her eyes were filled with genuine admiration and praise. Leo, you look so handsome. My face was expressionless, but I offered a rare response. Yeah, I am pretty handsome. This party was hosted by the Vances to welcome the new heir of another main branch of the family from Seattle. It was said that the Song family from Seattle was even more powerful and influential than the Vances. So Mr. and Mrs. Vance had arrived early, their faces plastered with eager smiles. The Fab Four were there, of course. When Ethan glanced at me, his handsome face inevitably froze for a second. I stood by Scarlett's side and gave him a slight smile. When Jax and Troy saw me, their eyes flashed with surprise and admiration. Jax stood a little straighter, while Troy walked right up to Scarlett and angrily demanded to know what she was thinking. Scarlett sneered, Troy, you sent him so many gifts. Did he even look at them? He's only wearing the suit I gave him. I listened to their pointless arguments over who I belonged to. Suddenly, I heard a commotion at the front. The main guest had arrived. A distinguished figure, surrounded by bodyguards, slowly walked over and greeted the Vance family. Finally, I looked at the tall figure surrounded by the crowd. It was the first time I had seen Scarlett's father so obsequious. Miss Serena, it's so wonderful to have you in Chicago. You must stay for a while. She was a stunningly beautiful young woman, and the only one in a room full of dresses who didn't need to wear one. She didn't need a male escort either. She had her own circle of people fawning over her. Is this what power feels like? It's wonderful. Scarlett pulled me over to greet her. Cousin. Serena's beautiful eyes narrowed as she looked at me. Scarlett quickly introduced me. This is Leo. He's my fiancé. Her parents' expressions changed, but in front of everyone, they didn't say anything. The other three had varied, unpleasant expressions on their faces. So you're my cousin's fiancé? Serena said, staring at me with a smile and extending her hand. I clasped her hand firmly, my tone serious. I've heard so much about you, Ms. Song. We've made contact. This wasn't our first meeting. 2 years ago, when I ran away from home, I called the number my mom had left me. The company she worked for had just undergone a major leadership change. The chairman had passed away, and a new successor had taken over. Serena found me. The first time I saw her, I knew she could help me. According to the Fab Four's original plan, they were going to go skiing in Switzerland in late May. When Ethan brought it up again, no one was very enthusiastic. Seeing him as a lonely commander, I felt pity and said I would go. Scarlett carefully suggested that if I didn't want to see Ethan, she and I could go together. I smiled. How could we do that? After all, we're a 5-person group. No one can be left out. On a private jet across the ocean, Scarlett thought she had found a chance to mend our relationship. But I insisted on bringing the other 3. But when we got there and Scarlett and the others were about to go skiing, I claimed to be tired from the journey and wanted to rest first. This rest lasted for several days. At first, Scarlett wanted to stay with me and not go skiing with Ethan. But after being invited a few too many times, she went skiing with the other 3. I had calculated everything. I had brought my passport, ID, and all my important documents on this trip. 2 hours after Scarlett left, Serena sent a message saying it was time to move. So I put on my ski gear and slung on the backpack I had prepared. Under the surveillance cameras, I walked step by step towards the snow-covered mountain. I used to ski with Scarlett a lot as a child, so I was quite skilled. I skied further and further away. Then, following the location Serena had given me, I navigated through a series of winding paths to a deserted area with no tourists. Someone was already waiting for me there. We made contact. I followed them down a deserted path, avoiding all surveillance, and got into a car. Then I boarded a private plane sent by Serena. With her help, every detail would be more believable. I was less than half a month away from being old enough to be completely free of my dad's control, but there was no better opportunity than this to escape. Serena would arrange for my disappearance on the mountain, a perfect escape, and this plane would fly back to the country. Serena had already taken care of all the necessary procedures for me to take the final exams in Seattle. More than 10 hours later, we landed at a private airstrip in Seattle. Serena was already waiting there. As soon as I got off the plane, she handed me my exam admission ticket and a crystal goblet. Serena raised her glass to me with a smile. Congratulations on your new life. Those who leave the ICU either face death or a new life. I survived. Of course, I was welcoming a new life. My 4th escape attempt was finally a success. On the other side of the world, Scarlett's group was in chaos. Leo Quinn was missing. They reported it to the local police, but by nightfall, there was still no news. A tourist had seen which way Leo had gone and pointed them in the right direction. But it was an unopened area, making the search and rescue operation extremely difficult. As time passed, Scarlett grew more and more frantic. Missing on a snowy mountain, the chances were he might be. She began to hate herself for going skiing with them. She left him alone just once, and he got into trouble. The vacation, which was meant for relaxation, had turned into a nightmare because of what happened to Leo. Ethan, who had suggested the ski trip, was pale with guilt. The mood in the group was anything but joyful. It was overwhelmingly oppressive. Ever since Leo was hospitalized, everything had changed. No one revolved around Ethan anymore. Scarlett was a nervous wreck, bowing and scraping just to get Leo to look at her or say a word. Even Troy and Jax were always at Leo's side. They had wanted to ski too, but now that Leo was missing, they were blaming it all on Ethan. These people were acting like they were possessed. But amidst the chaos, Ethan had a nagging feeling that something was wrong. And this secret unease was confirmed a day later when the search party found Leo's phone. After warming it up and charging it, they cracked the password. Among the countless missed calls and unread messages, one read message from Ethan stood out. The date was the day Leo went missing. Ethan, Leo, Scarlett, and the others are hurt. Can you bring the first aid kit? The location sent was the exact area where the search party found the phone. Ethan's face turned white, as if he had been hit over the head with a club. His lips trembled as he stammered an explanation. "I didn't send that. That's not the message I sent." The way the other three looked at him was as if they wanted to eat him alive. In the next instant, Scarlett, her eyes bloodshot, lunged at him and grabbed his throat. "It was you. Ethan, you set Leo up last time too. If it weren't for you, Leo wouldn't have been injured and lost his memory." Her expression was terrifying. Ethan could barely breathe. "That's a person's life. Ethan, there's a limit to your jealousy and scheming. Did you want to kill Leo?" People pulled the enraged Scarlett away, but their gazes towards Ethan were no longer friendly. "If anything happens to Leo, I'll make you pay with your life." Troy held back the frantic Scarlett, while Jax just watched coldly. Ethan was on the verge of a breakdown, crying and desperately trying to explain. "It wasn't me. It really wasn't me. This time it really wasn't me." He had sent a message to Leo, but it definitely wasn't that one. Ethan's vision went black. But with the evidence right there, he had no way to defend himself. It was aimed at him. Leo Quinn was definitely getting his revenge. A few days later, I heard that the rescue team in Switzerland had found nothing on the mountain. Ethan was brought back home by his family, supposedly to recuperate, but really to protect him from Scarlett's revenge. Scarlett and the other two stayed behind, still searching for me, I heard. They wanted to find me dead or alive. On the day of the finals, it was a dreary, rainy day. At 3 a.m., a gaunt Scarlett was still up all night, waiting for news from the search party. Meanwhile, across the ocean in Seattle, at 9 a.m., the exams officially began. "The exam has now started. Candidates, you may begin." I let out a long breath, free from all restraints and shackles. I picked up my pen and began to write my future. After the exams, I checked my answers once and then didn't look at them again. Serena smiled and asked me what I thought my score would be. I conservatively replied that I could probably choose any university I wanted. "Serena, you're even more brilliant than your mother. Before you were born, she was the youngest CFO in my father's company. I thought you would follow in her footsteps, but I didn't expect you to be such a rare genius in information technology." A year ago, I became a cybersecurity consultant for Serena's group. I was excellent at fending off attacks from foreign entities or competing companies' hackers. She was very satisfied. If I could defend, I could also invade. For the past 2 years, I had endured humiliation as the help around the four of them, secretly digging up dirt on their families and closely monitoring the Vance family's movements. After biding my time, I was ready to strike. 2 years ago, Serena told me that my mother's car accident was not an accident, but a man-made disaster. My mother was the company's CFO at the time, a key figure. Serena had people investigate the accident. On the surface, everything seemed normal. But Serena discovered that the son of the driver at fault had already gone abroad half a month before the accident. An overseas account had received a deposit of $2 million. At that point, what was there not to understand? Serena gave me the information on the unknown account that made the payment. I followed the trail, tracing the IP address, layer by layer. I traced it back to a small, obscure trading company under Scarlett's father. In that moment, I was consumed by rage and hatred. I knew that even if I handed this evidence to the authorities, not only were my methods of investigation illegal, but Scarlett's father had plenty of people to take the fall for him. They had done it so cleanly that it would be impossible to trace it back to him, the big boss. All because his daughter couldn't bear to let her beloved toy leave. Mr. Vance just had to lift a finger, and my mother suffered a heaven-sent disaster. The more I learned about their family's power and influence, the more terrified I became. My desire for revenge was like an ant trying to shake a tree. After I returned, I kept thinking, how much did my dad know about this? Or was it possible that my dad was also an accomplice in my mother's death? After all, if my mom had taken me away, it would have been nothing but detrimental to him. Everything he gained in the Vance group was because of me. And what about Scarlett? Did she know? If she didn't know, why did she arrive so quickly that day? Why did she say those things? Why was she so sure I couldn't leave? A chill ran down my spine. One was my own father, the other was the friend I grew up with. Yet they might have been accomplices in my mother's murder. I stayed up all night, then accepted Serena's offer of cooperation. She would help me break free from the Vance family and my dad. I would help her acquire the Vance family's decades-old business empire in Chicago. I couldn't get revenge on my own. So I went back with my dad, back to them. My dad was Mr. Vance's deputy and held most of the group's secrets. Those secrets were either paper documents he kept at home or electronic files. Breaking into his computer was as easy as breathing. In fact, if you look closely, every corporation has its dirty secrets and gray areas. But no matter how deeply they were hidden, as long as they used electronic devices, I could dig them up. Finding out about the Troy, Jax, and Ethan family secrets was just a matter of convenience. Serena also needed 2 years to completely take over her father's assets. The date was approaching, and the 4 of them were going abroad. Actually, Ethan didn't need to deliberately leave his backup phone for me to see. I could know their every move in an instant. But what good would hiding abroad do? When the fires of revenge were lit, they would be the first to be burned, with no escape. The only mistake was Ethan's sudden fall on stage, and Scarlett pushing me against the sharp corner of a shelf. I almost died. If there had been even a slight miscalculation, I could have been left with brain damage or, like my mother, in a vegetative state. I had been struggling with how to deal with Scarlett because of our past, but now I had no such concerns. Before I passed out, I didn't feel bitterness. I had been bitter for the past 3 years. What I felt was hatred. The hatred of having my own body fatally wounded. You regret it now? You feel guilty now? What were you doing before, Scarlett? I almost died. Step by step, one by one, just as we had planned. The message about Ethan on the mountain was just a small gift in return. A return for his slander and framing during the school festival performance. The main event was just beginning. The project the Vance Group was handling suddenly ran into one problem after another. Mr. Quinn was taken in for investigation on suspicion of leaking company secrets. One disaster followed another. All of Scarlett's father's past illegal projects and gray area businesses were exposed, causing a public uproar. This attracted the attention of the relevant authorities, and the Vance family was too preoccupied to deal with it. Mr. Vance was desperately seeking help. The businesses of the Jax, Troy, and Ethan families were also exposed. Because the 4 families were so closely linked with many business dealings, it was basically a domino effect. The surveillance video of Troy beating up Mutt had long been deleted by the Troy family, but it reappeared today as everyone was kicking them while they were down. And the students that Ethan, Jax, and Troy had bullied in the past, the victims whose cases had been handled by their families, all came forward with videos. There were pictures and videos, irrefutable proof, plus the one-sided public opinion. More students who had been bullied by them spoke out online, corroborating the stories. Justice, long overdue, was finally served through the actions of an anonymous hacker who laid bare a bloody record of crimes. On the other side of the internet, I silently watched as all the evidence I had collected over the years was sent out. Suddenly, I felt a sense of relief, a multi-pronged attack. I would leave them with no room to fight back. Ethan, relying on the adoration of his 2 brothers, would destroy any boy who got close to his possessions. He would pretend to be their friend, then use all sorts of methods to ruin them behind their backs. It was only because of my special status and my father's high-ranking position at the Vances that I wasn't easily targeted with compromising photos. As for Troy's ridiculous crush, it was more like humiliation. He would belittle and mock me, deliberately call me ugly, spread nasty rumors about me and my desk partner, and then beat her up. Was I supposed to wag my tail and thank him for his affection? And Jax, who never took the lead himself but was behind every incident, naturally couldn't escape either. I simply couldn't bring myself to be grateful to these 2 moody young masters for the affection they had for my appearance or for my refusal to grovel. A disgusting, unsettling feeling, like something stuck in my throat, something not worth keeping but hard to discard. By the time the final exam scores were released, my score was redacted from public view. Those families were bled dry, in shambles, and the negative impact was still spreading. Forced to cut their losses, they suffered greatly and were severely weakened. The Vance family was a special case, with deep roots and extensive connections. The main target was Scarlett's father. Serena waited until the Vance family was on the verge of collapse before she, with a winning hand, accepted their repeated pleas for a meeting. But she wasn't there to offer a helping hand. She was a venomous snake. She had already drafted a contract to strip them of their power. She was going to swallow them whole. My top score in Seattle would soon shatter the fake news of my disappearance on the mountain. The four of them probably already knew that I had faked my disappearance and fooled everyone. But I didn't leave Seattle. I waited for my old friends to come to me. When Scarlett appeared before me, I almost didn't recognize her. The once proud and elegant heiress was haggard and had lost a lot of weight. She was dusty from travel and hadn't even taken a moment to rest. She found me almost immediately. Scarlett's voice was hoarse and tired. Why? I didn't know if she was asking why I disappeared or why I was retaliating against her family. Scarlett, this is probably the last time we'll see each other. When I found out the truth about my mother's car accident, I also wanted to ask you why. When you let Troy and Jax bully me, I also wanted to ask you why. When you pushed me, I also wanted to ask you why. But then I realized you never saw me as a person. I was your toy, your servant. So when I disobeyed you, you were unhappy. When I wanted to leave, your father, for your sake, had someone run over my mother. Are you going to talk about love? Scarlett, do you really think I'd believe that nonsense about you using Ethan to make me jealous? For 3 years, your heart wavered. For those 3 years, you were leaning towards him. You liked Ethan then. People don't just like one person their whole lives. But Scarlett, I'll say it one last time. I only ever saw you as a childhood friend. I never, ever liked you, and I never wanted to marry you. Scarlett's eyes were vacant. Her lips just moved. I know. But Scarlett, you held me back. Do you know that? Do you know what kind of life my mother had planned for me? I took a step closer to her, staring directly at her. Scarlett crumbled under my interrogating gaze. A life where I could develop freely, plan my own days, without having to accompany someone all the time, where I didn't have to hide my talents, didn't have to carefully protect someone's ego by concealing my own abilities, where I didn't have to watch people's expressions, didn't have to be someone's servant. I just had to be myself. With each question, the color drained from Scarlett's face. By the end, she was on the verge of collapsing. I'm sorry. I was selfish, Leo. I'm sorry. I backed her up against the main gate, step by step, then reached out my hand, just like that day, and pushed her hard. Scarlett's eyes were full of shock. She was lucky. She just fell. Get out, Scarlett. Don't ever bother me again. I'm alive because I'm lucky, because I'm tough. I don't want your guilt or your compensation. After all, you were one step away from mourning at my grave. The gate slammed shut in her face. Scarlett wouldn't have time to bother me anymore. Her family had plenty of problems waiting for her. She stood outside the villa for a long, long time, until she passed out in the early morning and was taken away by the people following her. The day after I turned 18, I went to Chicago. I cursed out Jax, punched Troy, and humiliated Ethan. Then I cut ties with them completely. They were actually afraid of me now. It seems those days of being universally hated had taken their toll. Mr. Quinn lost everything. Everything he had gained because of me was gone. A stray dog. He cursed me, blaming me for not listening to him. Until I told him that if he didn't learn to live with his tail between his legs, what happened to my mom, I would make him experience it too. Of course, I was just scaring him. It was funny. When he found out I was behind the downfall of those 4 families, he started to fear me too. This man who had been so arrogant his whole life finally couldn't be arrogant anymore. He did know the truth about my mom's accident. He might have even been involved. He had just reached the position of general manager only to be thrown down again. His wife and son were gone, and his mistresses had run off. Coincidentally, Scarlett's father, while driving, was hit and killed on the street by another person with nothing to lose. Karma. Fine play. After everything settled, my revenge was complete. Serena was handling the cleanup. She still took the time to see me off. I left with the admissions team from MIT. Serena smiled and asked why I was in such a hurry. I smiled back and said I was afraid of unforeseen complications, that those families might come back for revenge. She said they probably didn't have the time for that. Serena invited me for a deeper collaboration, to come work for her officially after graduation. I told her that a professor in the physics department had invited me to participate in his summer research, and said with a smile, "We'll see." In my account was the final payment from Serena, enough money for me to choose my own path in life. Mom, I now have enough capital to accept or reject anyone or anything. I can stand on my own 2 feet in this world. Don't worry about me anymore. Your son is very strong now. I will, as you hoped for me, aim high and reach for the stars. In my 18th year, I finally welcomed my own new life.